Here we are. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today in the city of Fresno, and thank you, Fresno Council of Governments, for hosting the April 18th Road Charge Technical Advisory Committee meeting. Special thanks for me for providing coffee. Always a win. I know it's going to be a great day because of that. So for sure. I want to let everyone know that Lauren Kay, who's been a member of the Road Charge Technical Advisory Committee since its formation, just recently retired. I want to thank Lauren for serving on this committee for 10 years and for providing his insight and perspective as a representative from the Chamber of Commerce. I wish him all the best in his retirement. I hope you join me in sending him well wishes. We will begin today's meeting with a welcome to the region from the mayor of the city of Parlier, Alma Beltran, and Fresno Council of Governments Executive Director Robert Phipps. Following the welcome to the region, we have 4 informational items on the agenda today. First on the agenda, CTC staff will provide an update on the composition of the Road Charge Technical Advisory Committee, as we have had many membership changes since the committee's formation and want to ensure we are still meeting the statutory direction for its composition. Moving on to the second informational item, CTC staff will provide an update and presentation on the draft 2025 state and local transportation system needs assessment. The needs assessment provides recommendations on how to address the gap between the 10-year statewide transportation needs and projected revenues as identified in this report. The final 2025 state and local transportation system needs assessment will be presented at the May 15th and 16th CTC meeting for adoption, and then will be submitted to the California legislature thereafter. Following the CTC, Caltrans will provide an update on the Senate Bill 339 road charge revenue collection pilot. This most recent pilot ran for 6 months and concluded on January 31st. Caltrans will also present the last informational item, an overview on the public-private road charge project. The public-private road charge project focused on the perspectives of 2 distinct populations in this state, rural and tribal communities. Before we begin, we have some brief instructions regarding the webinar and public comment for those joining us virtually, and welcome to the folks who are joining virtually. Justin will provide these instructions. Go ahead, Justin. Oh, and as well as roll call will be coming up right after that.
Thank you, Chair. I will start with roll call. Asha Agarwal, Lisa Bartlett, Terry Benzel,
Here online.
Vice Chair Steve Finnegan,
Here remote.
Jim Adaffer,
Here in person.
Pam O'Connor,
Here in person.
Robert Poitras,
Here.
Misty Ripwald,
Here remote.
Eric Sauer, Stacy Atkins Salazar,
I'm here online.
Lee Tien,
Here, remote. Thank you.
Assemblymember Lori Wilson, Chair Jay Bradshaw. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Justin. Now we'll go through the instructions.
Will do. Thank you. Welcome, everyone, to the April 2025 Road Charge Technical Advisory Committee meeting. The California Road Charge Technical Advisory Committee was established in 2014 by Senate Bill 1077 to study the alternatives to the gas tax, gather public comment, and to make recommendations to the California State Transportation Agency regarding the design of a road charge pilot program. Today's meeting agenda can be found on our website at www.catc.ca.gov. American Sign Language translation is being provided for this meeting. You should see the interpreters on your screen. Members, should you have any questions or comments during the meeting, please let us know by raising your hand or otherwise get our attention on camera and wait for the chair to call on you. You can also send inquiries and comments to the questions tab that can be read to presenters and the audience on your behalf. Please mute your microphone except when you intend to speak to minimize outside noise and feedback. Chair will do their best to call on each of you in turn. We hope that you will turn on your camera while speaking if you have one. Presenters, if you're on the agenda to make a presentation, please do your best to be succinct. Please remember to speak at a steady pace to allow our interpreting service adequate time for accurate translation. We hope that you will also turn on your camera during your presentation if you have one. Members of the public, we welcome comments from the public as a part of each item at this meeting. For those attending in person, please submit a speaker slip to the clerk, that's myself, to let us know you want to comment on an item. For For those attending via Zoom, you should see the webinar control panel, likely located on the bottom of your screen. There you'll find the raise hand and Q&A buttons. We encourage you to use the raise hand feature as soon as we reach the item to give the system time to acknowledge you. Committee staff will let you know when it's your turn to make your comment. Alternately, you may use the Q&A tab to submit your comment. Committee staff will read the comment on your behalf. As a reminder, each registered attendee is provided a unique link and phone number to access the webinar. These should not be shared with other participants, as this can create confusion for staff when making comments. Please do your best to be concise. Please remember to speak at a steady pace to allow our translating services adequate time for accurate translation. Please make sure that your comments add new information. If you agree with the comments of a previous speaker, simply make that statement. We ask that you make your point in 2 minutes or less. If for some reason we have many speakers on any single topic, we reserve the right to limit comments to 1 minute if needed. Thank you all for joining us today. We know your time is valuable and we appreciate you sharing it with us.
Thank you, Justin. That brings us to item number 3, which is the welcome to the region. Want to welcome Mayor Parlier, Alma Beltran, and Executive Director Phipps from the Fresno Council of Government to provide us an overview of the Fresno region. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Good afternoon, advisory committee members, and thank you very much for allowing Fresno Council of Governments to host your meeting today. My name is Alma Beltran, Mayor of the City of Parlier, one of the 16 jurisdictions in our region, and the Chair for the Fresno Council of Governments. Welcome to our region. I hope your stay is enjoyable and that you can visit some of our notable sites during your time here, including the famous Blossom Trail that includes my city, the city of Parlier, a rural community. Like so many other San Joaquin Valley communities, Parlier has a strong and proud Latino heritage whose hallmark is hard work and resilience. Just like each of our hometowns and agriculture-based communities strives each day to make the quality of life better for the residents. The work you do is important and will help determine how best to support our transportation infrastructure and prioritize decades into the future. No doubt that the decisions you face weigh heavily on your minds, actually. We ask only that you remember smaller jurisdictions like Parlier in the deliberations and keep in mind how those decisions may impact both urban and rural residents alike. Thank you again for your time, for your visit. I am joined today by Fresno COG's Executive Director, Robert Phipps, who will offer you a broader perspective of our region and its people. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Honorable Chairman and Commissioners, Advisory Committee members. Robert Phipps, Executive Director with Fresno Council of Governments, here with a short presentation about Fresno County and its people and its landscape. If we can have, let's see if I can. Okay, next slide then. This should work. Okay. Fresno County, located centrally in California, it's the 10th most populous county in the state with, as Mayor Beltran mentioned, 15 incorporated cities. Of course, our organization, including the county itself, is the 16th, and it has the 7th largest census designated urban area in California. Next slide. This is a snapshot. I'm not going to go through this entirely. But a snapshot of a lot of our demographics. We have the most maintained road miles of any county in the state of California, with a median age of 32.6 years old, about 338,000 housing units with a home ownership rate of about 54%, about 22%, a little over 22%. Of our population has a bachelor's degree or higher, about 7.3% without any health coverage at all. with a median household income of about 61,000 people, and a daily VMT of about 21.2 million each day. Next slide, please. In terms of our population growth, you can see that we have accelerated, had historically accelerated population growth since 1970, outpacing both national trends and the state, 147% growth since that time. But if you can see that smaller graph on the left, that is beginning to slow down. And in fact, we anticipate by the 2050s that we will actually begin experiencing a population decline. This is not unusual in the state of California, and we're actually beginning to see this as a nationwide trend. Next slide, please. We are considered even within California, one of the most diverse and culturally diverse counties in the entire state. A majority minority community with about 54% nearly of whom are Hispanic or Latino, a white population of just over 27%. And so very, very diverse. Next slide, please. And again, in terms of transportation and transportation infrastructure, a little over 7,000 miles maintained road miles, about 77% of whom in terms of the commute who drive to work alone right now, with an average commute of 23.3 minutes, which is one of the shortest consistently in the top 10 least congested regions of our size in the country. About 7% of our population, of our working population, commute from home, about 2% bike, and about 1% use transit. But a healthy percentage, almost 12%, either carpool or vanpool to work. Next slide, please. As the mayor mentioned, next slide, thank you. As the mayor mentioned, we do have a number of attractions that we offer. We like to talk about the 3 national parks being right in our backyard, Kings Canyon and the Sequoia, as well as, of course, Yosemite, which attracts millions of visitors each year. She also mentioned the famous Blossom Trail. We do pride ourselves on our agriculture, as do most San Joaquin Valley communities and counties. We also have a very well-developed metropolitan zoo, the Chaffee Zoo here in Fresno, as well as the Forestier Underground Gardens and our urban tower district, home to a lot of our theater and bar scene, nightclub scene. In terms of economics, you can see that Fresno, next slide, I'm sorry. In terms of our economics, Fresno, if any of you remember the old Carol Burnett skit, I think it was a mini series, The Power, the Passion, the Produce. Fresno has consistently ranks number 1 or number 2 in terms of agriculture. We've been in the number 2 spot for the last few years, but over $8 billion in agricultural commodities, primarily grapes, almonds, pistachios, and milk. Next slide, please. But that is, we are beginning to see a change in that, as you can see here in the pie chart. Education services, healthcare, and social assistance making up a huge slice of our pie, about 27%. Agriculture, about 7.8%. Other major trades, including retail, arts, entertainment, and recreation, among those, and professional science, scientific management and administrative services, making up significant shares as well, including, of course, an expanding logistics center. And so with that, last slide, please. We hope you will enjoy your time in Fresno. We're happy that you chose our venue. Thank you for being here and happy to accommodate you in any way that we possibly can. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mayor Beltran, Executive Director Phipps. Fantastic. Welcome to the region. Are there any public comments in the room or online?
Chair, not seeing any request for public comment on this item.
Thank you. Yep, I was going to go to the committee. Any committee members?
Right,
Have
I was
something
going
to
to say, I got here yesterday on the train and got to walk past the fabulous City Hall in Fresno. And as I'm a little bit older, I was able to benefit from free transportation on the FACTS public transit system. Saw your rapid bus and used some of the others. So it was a great way to explore at least the city of Fresno. So thanks for those services.
Thank you, Councilmember. We appreciate it. And yeah, and we are working as Asha and I were discussing over lunch, we are working on our infill development, and we do have a couple of bus rapid transit corridors now that we're developing, particularly along Blackstone Avenue, which was the old State Route 41, and our Kings Canyon corridor, now known as Cesar Chavez. And working on a lot of infill development in those areas. So thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Thank you, Member O'Connor. Any other committee members in the room? How about online? Okay, seeing none. That brings us to agenda number 4. My pleasure to introduce Executive Director Tanisha Taylor, who will give us an update from the commission perspective.
Thank you, Chair Bradshaw. Excuse me. Good morning. It's good to meet again with everyone here in the city of Fresno. I'd like to start by thanking Fresno COG and the city of Fresno for hosting us, and thanks for those warm remarks, Mayor Beltran and Director Phipps. It's good to see you. I've known Robert for quite some time now, and I consider him a friend. I'd also like to thank Lauren Kay for his dedicated service on the Technical Advisory Committee over the past 10 years. During his time with us, Lauren has provided invaluable perspective and feedback regarding the study and potential implementation of a road usage charge in California. Our team is working with the commission chair to identify representation to fill this vacancy on the committee. I look forward to the items on today's agenda to help continue the committee's efforts on road charge, particularly with the release of the public-private road project report. Congratulations to the Caltrans team. Lauren, congratulations on this most recent initiative of its ongoing efforts to study the viability of road charge in the state. Last, I want to recognize Francis Diaz-Sanchez, Sasha Linker, Nina Hosseini, and Laura Pennybaker for their work in preparing this meeting for you all today. And that concludes my remarks, and I'll turn it back over to you, Chair.
Thank you, Executive Director Taylor. Are there any public comments in the room on the report?
Not seeing any request for public comment on this item.
Online?
Not there either.
Committee members, any comments? Questions? Seeing none, how about online? Okay. Hearing none. Thanks again, Executive Director Taylor. I also would like to recognize staff, always doing a fantastic job. That brings us to agenda item number 5, which will be approval of the minutes for February 28th, TAC meeting and review of action item. So that brings us to the minutes of February 28th. And Francis, before we approve these, please remind us of the action item from the last meeting.
Yes, Chair Bradshaw. At the last meeting, you had requested information from Mr. Gus Corey during our February 28th meeting about the cost savings data on vehicle registration fees. We contacted Mr. Gus Corey to follow up on the requested information and have not received it yet. So just kind of letting you know that we did follow up and it's just waiting.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you for the update. I appreciate it, the effort to get the information. So this is an action item. Before we go there, are there any public comments?
Not seeing any request for public comment.
Online, same?
Same.
Committee members, questions on the minutes, comments? Go ahead, Commissioner.
My question is, I missed the meeting, unfortunately, but I did. It was very easy to access it and review it on YouTube. So I did watch the meeting. So can I vote on the minutes or should I abstain?
You can vote.
Pardon me?
You vote.
You
Okay,
can
great.
vote.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner O'Connor. Any comments online from committee members?
No, I'll move approval if that's not been moved already. Steve Finnegan.
We have a motion and a second for approval. We're going to have a roll call vote, Justin.
Who was the second?
Who was the second, please?
Madaffer.
Madaffer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll call the roll. Asha Agarwal, Lisa Bartlett,
Yes.
Terry Benzel,
Yes.
Vice Chair Finnegan,
Yes.
Jim Madaffer,
Yes.
Pam O'Connor,
Yes.
Robert Poitras,
Yes.
Misty Rickwalt,
Aye.
Eric Sauer, Stacy Atkins Salazar,
Yes.
Lee Tien,
Yes.
Assemblymember Lori Wilson, Chair Jay Bradshaw.
Yes.
The motion is approved.
Thank you, Justin. That'll bring us to item number 6, where we'll hear from committee members. Members, are there any road charge related topics or reports you'd like to share today? Go ahead, Commissioner Madaffer, or Committee Member Madaffer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to note, and I sent it out to Douglas earlier, there was an article today in the San Diego Union Tribune, of all things, about road charge. And I think at some point they'll be able to circulate it to this committee as well as I would hope the commissioners as well on the CTC. It was a good update, pretty accurate as to where we are. And it was very nice to see. It was ironic that it happened to come out on the same day as this committee meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Member Madaffer. Member O'Connor?
Right, I was just going to, this is not directly related to road charge, but just mentioned that I was appointed to the Los Angeles County Regional Planning Commission. And in case you don't know, Los Angeles County, 65% of the of the county area, 65% is unincorporated, and a large amount of that is rural, along with mountain, desert, and coastal habitats. So, and if you grouped us together, people think of LA County, I think of LA and the 88 cities, but the county of LA, if you count the population of that of over 1 million, would make us the 3rd largest city if we were a city. But again, I'm looking forward to the rural, learning more about the rural aspects of road charge today. Thank you.
Thank you, Member O'Connor. Any other committee members online? Nope. Okay. Thank you, everyone. That brings us to item number 7, which will be an update on the committee composition. This is an information item. Francis will cover this on behalf of the CTC and provide an update as required under Senate Bill 1077.
Thank you, Chair Bradshaw.
Thank you.
This is again, an informational update on the committee composition. In 2015, Senate Bill 1077 directed the chair of the California Transportation Commission to establish the Road Charge Technical Advisory Committee to study road users charge program as an alternative to the fuel tax. Senate Bill 1077 directed that the Technical Advisory Committee shall consist of 15 members and that the chair shall consider individuals who are representative of the telecommunications industry, highway users group, the data security, privacy industry, privacy rights advocacy organizations, regional transportation agencies, national research and policy making bodies, including but not limited to the Transportation Research Board and the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Aficionados, also known as AASHTO, members of the legislature and other relevant stakeholders. Since 2015, the chair of the California Transportation Commission has continued to appoint new members to the Technical Advisory Committee as vacancies arise. After 10 years, several changes among Technical Advisory Committee members have necessitated an evaluation of the membership to ensure that its current composition is consistent with the statutory requirements outlined above. So essentially, We're just ensuring that we're meeting what is outlined and required in Senate Bill 1077, which is in statute. And there's no action item in regard to today's item that's being presented here in tab 7, but we just wanted to kind of let you know that we are just looking at the community composition and again, ensuring that it is consistent with what is required in statute.
Thank
And
you, Francis.
you're welcome.
Do members have any questions for Francis on her report?
Just a comment.
ahead.
And I noticed, Mr. Chair, you mentioned, I'm sorry? Testing? Oh, sorry. I'll get closer.
There we go.
Is that better?
Excellent.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. I just noted in the chair's report about Lauren Kay, who was an amazing member of this task force for a long, long time. And I noted you said that the look is going to be for somebody from the business community. I would hope that's, I mean, probably whether from Cal Chamber or something similar. I presume there's a new Lauren Kay at Cal Chamber, or there will be.
Well, I don't know who's
Never replaced
him.
Lauren Kay, right?
But yeah, we met with Lauren and I do need to follow up to see just to see who would be a viable replacement. I think the perspective he brought was very important to the committee. And I know he was very committed, on the topic of road usage charge. But yeah, we'll be working on identifying a replacement for
That's great.
Lauren.
I just love having differing points of view, and he definitely brought the business perspective, which I think is important here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Member Madaffer. Any other members? Questions or comments on the report? Online? No? Any public comment in the room? Or online?
Not seeing any request for public comment on this item.
Thank you, Douglas. Thanks again, Francis. This will bring us to item number 8, which is an update on the draft 2025 State and Local Transportation System Needs Assessment. This is also an information item. Francis, again, from the California Transportation Commission, will provide an update on the draft 2025 State and Local Transportation System Needs Assessment.
Thank you, Chair Bradshaw. Committee members, I believe I presented on the interim report or provided an update at I can't fully remember the which meeting, but I did provide an update on the interim report. Just very quickly, the draft 2025 State and Local Transportation System Needs Assessment Report was released for public comment for a 30-day period beginning March 3rd and closed on April 2nd. This item was presented at the March Commission meeting. Since we began the process, Commission staff engaged with stakeholders to develop the draft 2025 State and Local Transportation System Needs Assessment by hosting 11 stakeholder work group meetings over the course of the 15 months that we worked to develop this report. In addition to stakeholder work group meetings, Commission staff held several workshops, including the policy recommendations workshops, which helped inform the development of the recommendations for the draft 2025 needs assessment. Staff also held working sessions with the metropolitan planning organizations and regional transportation planning agencies to review information gathered from regional transportation plans and coordinated with the California Department of Transportation. Commission staff presented and provided updates to the Interagency Equity Advisory Committee, the Native American Advisory Committee, Seamless Bay Area, Climate Plan, and other advocacy organizations during the development of this needs assessment. Since the preliminary revenue and needs were initially presented in the interim needs assessment, the anticipated needs, revenues, and shortfall numbers were reviewed, vetted, and finalized with partner agencies prior to the release of the draft 2025 needs assessment on March 3rd. The total transportation funding needs over the next 10 years are estimated to be approximately $757.5 billion as identified in the draft that was identified in the draft 2025 needs assessment report. The projected statewide 10-year revenue is approximately $572 billion. However, the projected revenue is anticipated to decline due to a reduction in gasoline and diesel consumption resulting from the state's ongoing work to reduce air pollution by encouraging cleaner vehicles on the roads in the future. It is anticipated that this may result in a decline in revenue of up to an additional $31 billion over the next decade, reducing the anticipated 10-year revenue to $541 billion, with an anticipated shortfall of $216.5 billion, roughly. With that, I will begin my presentation to talk about what our recommendations are that were in the draft report and how we're going to proceed thereafter. Next slide, please, Brandy. So just quickly, I will be going over, again, the needs assessment overview, our draft findings, as I just discussed, our draft recommendations, the methodology, and the next steps. Next slide, please. Senate Bill 1121, authored by Senator Gonzalez in 2022, requires that the commission prepare a 10-year statewide transportation needs assessment and to have that updated every 5 years. So we will be coming back with an updated report in another 5 years. It is intended to assess the cost to operate, maintain, and grow the statewide multimodal transportation system. It needs to consider the costs to address climate resiliency, compare those costs against our available transportation revenues, and provide recommendations to address any revenue shortfall. Next slide, please, Brandy. In terms of our draft findings, as I stated, within the draft needs assessment report, we have identified a 10-year need of roughly $757 billion, a projected revenue of $572 billion with that 10-year outlook. Again, with an additional reduction of $31.1 billion, bringing that down to $541 billion. So our shortfall, or that gap that we're seeing between our needs and revenue, is roughly $216.5 billion. Next slide, please. In terms of the 10-year statewide needs and revenue summary, this provides a little more detail on what our needs are on the facility side and sort of what the funding outlook is in more specific categories. So this is just a little more detail if you were interested in seeing some of the breakout on the components there. So next slide, please, Brandy. So in terms of our draft recommendations within the report to the legislature, the needs assessment does recommend an adoption of these first principles. These were presented at our stakeholder workshops, specifically the policy recommendation workshops. And so we incorporate feedback that we received there and are proposing to the legislature to adopt this in addition to our recommendation on what to do with the decline in revenue. The first principles are intended to be building blocks for identifying important aspects of the statewide transportation system. There is no priority in these first principles, and it will be up to the legislature to decide how they may want to prioritize or give weight to them, but we will continue working with the legislature on how they want to approach the first principles. But at the heart of it, the most important thing is that we need a sustainable funding source. Next slide, please. In terms of our draft recommendations on what to do with that shortfall, within the input that we received at our policy recommendation workshops and in subsequent stakeholder meetings, we have identified that the preferred scenario would be a phased implementation of a sustainable funding mechanism to replace the state gas tax. So, it's really important to note that this would require legislative action. and that a sustainable funding mechanism could take different forms. That could include road charge. It could include vehicle registration fees. The report doesn't identify a specific source because we know that, at the end of the day, we will be working with the legislature to figure out what that would look like ultimately to replace the state excise gas tax. A really important point too is that the goal of implementing a new sustainable funding mechanism should be to stop the loss of transportation revenues due to the decline of our fuel consumption. A significant shortfall would remain even if the projected revenue decline was halted and funding was stabilized. Additional revenues are needed to address the identified shortfall. So I think that's really important to note. And again, we will work with the legislature in identifying what that replacement would be and how it should be approached. Next slide, please. In addition to the first principles and the preferred scenario of phasing in an implementation, a phased-in implementation of a sustainable funding mechanism, we identified the following areas for further study. Tribal transportation needs. Within the report, we recommend that the legislature explore ways to solicit information on transportation needs in tribal communities statewide that recognizes the sovereignty and specific circumstances of individual tribes and provides technical assistance as needed within the process. We just don't have a lot of information and data right now, and we would like to provide a more comprehensive look in subsequent needs assessments. We also highlighted accessible transportation needs in this report. We are recommending to the legislature to commission a study to supplement the needs identified in regional transportation plans and coordinated plans to ensure all needs, including those provided by social service agencies that are beyond ADA, are captured. We recognize within the report that we have a growing population and an aging population as well. And so, there will be shifts, I think, in how our transportation needs need to address our our growing population and changes there. Climate resiliency transportation needs, we are recommending to the legislature to identify an ongoing funding source to meet this growing need and to provide consistent funding levels once state and federal funds are exhausted. Most recently, I think we took an emergency action for the Pacific Surfliner corridor, due to coastal cliff erosion. So it's just a really ongoing sort of need that's been highlighted that has emerged over the last 10 years in our statewide transportation system. Next slide, please. So at a high level, really the inputs that went into the report development are methodology. Again, we held multiple stakeholder work group meetings and workshops, both technical and policy focused. We met with our Interagency Equity Advisory Committee and received a lot of feedback, particularly around the accessible transportation needs in the report. We took in existing transportation plans from report, the State Highway System Management Plan, the California State Rail Plan, Local Streets and Roads Report, and regional transportation plans. In addition to that, we reached out to all the regional transportation planning agencies and metropolitan planning organizations with an additional survey on our 10-year revenue projections and needs that they submitted in their RTPs to get to that 10-year horizon. Next slide, please. In terms of our next steps, again, we already had the draft released and the public comment period closed. So currently we are assessing the public comments that we have received. And we'll be incorporating those comments that we're able to into the final report that will be presented at the May Commission meeting for adoption and transmittal to the legislature. Just a broad sort of summary on some of the comments that we received, sort of the themes that we got. Generally, overall, there's a support for a phased in sustainable, there's support for the phased in sustainable funding mechanism replacement. However, many of the comments that we received did highlight that a specific funding mechanism should be identified within the report. Unmet transportation needs are substantial, and there's concern that the number provided in the needs assessment may underestimate the magnitude of the local needs. There has been requests to potentially prioritize, projects throughout the state on both the transportation need sides and, on the revenue and what to do. But, the intent of the report is really to provide a high level overview of what the issue and challenges are and what to do at a broad level there. Climate resiliency funding is extremely critical. That's, generally overall some of the comments we received there. And that there are existing challenges in gathering, I think data on the local needs side in this iteration, and that future iterations should more accurately reflect needs on the local transportation network there. So I think, just kind of acknowledging that, we can work to always have a more robust report for subsequent iterations. So with that, that concludes my presentation on the needs assessment and, some high level summary.
Thank you, Francis. That was an in-depth and robust report in itself. Seriously,
Sure.
we appreciate it. I'll put it to the committee members if there's any questions for Francis or comments.
Yeah,
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chairman, thank you very much. Yeah, I had a chance to review this report, and it was really interesting, to see that big number, $216 billion shortfall.
Mhm.
But then I looked at, one of those categories, and it's transit and rail. And then I really started wondering, it's kind of like, okay, now wait a minute. Okay, we are talking about funding for roads, for cars, et cetera, trucks. And then this thing is, this category is thrown in, and I'm not saying that it's not a legit category, but it seems like it should be another category. It's almost like you're throwing everything together and you're mixing apples and oranges, whereas if there was a separate one that talked about, roads and cars and the money we collect at the pump and what we're projecting to do with a road user charge. And then you've got your transit and rail, which, unless I've been missing something over the last 50 years, is not funded from our sales at the pump, or gas tax. So it seems like you're throwing everything in there. And if I was a legislator, I'd be sitting there going, well, that's great, but can you break it out and really give some, the categories? Okay, we're missing, say, $100 billion in transit and rail. What are the appropriate funds that are going to address that? And then with our automobiles and our roads, okay, we've got this $30 billion shortfall. Throwing it, unless there's some kind of an agenda to throw it all together and then take road funding and address transit and rail with it. I don't think that's going to be. Road user charge is unpopular enough, but taking this and putting it, you'd see a revolt here from our voters, and including myself. So anyway, that's my comment and observation.
Yeah, and I appreciate your comment. One of the inputs that went into our report was the state rail plan that includes, obviously, part of that rail category. CalSTA is leading the effort on the Senate Bill 125, in the Senate Bill 125 realm, to really evaluate what to do with transit funding. And I think the two reports they're kind of like sister reports, essentially. And I think just kind of giving that broad, high level overview in our report and saying, here's what our statewide needs are. I think, this is something in the report that, in terms of specific recommendations, would be done through the 125 process. But
And
Tanisha.
maybe I can add
Yeah.
something, and maybe taking a step back from where Francis started to put this report in some context. So this report is the entire need for the entire transportation system is what the commission was tasked with. And so when we talk about revenues, we're not just talking about gas tax revenues, we're talking about diesel revenues, we're talking about federal revenues, we're talking about local sales tax measures as well. And so when we say stop the bleed is not just shore up the gas tax, it is shore up all of transportation revenues so that when we start to talk about the needs, because we recognized in the report that SB1 didn't meet all of the needs alone and that we needed federal funding, we needed local measure funding, we needed a lot of different fund sources. And that's when we say stop the bleed, we're not just talking about a road user charge. The report is actually silent on road user charge. It's talking about the full spectrum of all of the fund sources.
Thank you. And I think back to my point, it would be, easier for me if there were like almost like two categories, cars and rail and transit, because again, to fix the shortfall, it's going to take drastic, the revenue sources are going to be way different in each category. So to me, again, and I see, okay, yeah, we're $200 billion short and so forth, but so anyway, but I know that down the road, when people start looking at it, it's going to be separated. It's just, when you throw it all together, it's kind of like, okay. All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Poitras. It's good. Executive Director Taylor, I believe you have a question on the report.
I think I actually
You
covered
got it.
it in my answer.
Got it
Thank you.
covered. I know we have a couple online. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Francis, for that overview. And it's really nice for us all to have this estimate to work from moving forward. This is not a question about that study, but I thought I remembered at some point that California was in theory going to do a new highway cost allocation study. And maybe Lauren, I don't know if that's a Caltrans thing, which is different from this, but they, again, are sisters. Is that
Right. So we don't necessarily have something in California called specifically the highway cost allocation study, but a lot of the principles that would be in something like that, you will find at least at the state level in the state highway system management plan. The difficulty I think that the CTC ran into in putting together this report is maybe at the local level, that kind of review is not there as much as it is at the state level.
So I know California, and it's been a while, I think the last highway cost allocation study for our state might have been the 80s or 90s. So it's quite old, but those take a little bit of a different look. And I'm not sure, maybe you're well aware of this, but they try and allocate what proportion of the cost of maintaining our system, building it and maintaining it, can be assigned to different classes of vehicles. And so as we take our idea of needs, but then also think about different possible revenue sources, it could be a very useful, just one of many tools to help us all think through what's fair and appropriate. And I'm probably wrong. I know in theory, Congress has directed USDOT to do a new national one that has been not really happening as far as I can tell. I'm probably misremembering that. I thought California also had legislation or some directive to produce one of these.
I'm not aware of it, but that does not mean that it does not exist because in the broad spectrum of transportation policy, it does not all fit in my head.
I understand. Anyway, it just seems like something that if California isn't doing, could be a useful companion piece over time to the needs allocation or the needs study.
Member Agro, that's great. Any other members in the room? Okay, I know we have some online. I think we have, who was first up, Douglas? The Tien. Go ahead, Member Tien.
Hi, thanks. This is Lee Tian with the Electronic Frontier Foundation. And, really the only reason I'm on this tack, because I know virtually nothing about transportation per se, is to represent the interests of privacy and security and consumers. And as part of the original, the road usage charge pilot, privacy is specifically something that we have been looking at over the entire time that I've been on it. On the TAC and, focus groups in the past certainly seem to think that that was important. Now, I understand that this document doesn't even mention the road charge, and it is a much larger transportation needs assessment. But it's troubling to me that in your first principles, there seems to be nothing about privacy, and maybe that's not appropriate for the rest of the transportation system. But certainly with respect to anything involving the road usage charge, we have been wrestling with things like how to have payment mechanisms that are more privacy protective, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's troubling to me to see that there doesn't seem to be any kind of recognition of the privacy as a first principle in this. So and I'll also say that because of the way modern technology eats data, it is pretty obvious to me that as technology improves, progresses, all of the data issues around transportation in California are going to increase, and they've already increased because of the effects of, say, the overturning of Roe versus Wade and concerns about privacy and for folks who cross state lines in order to obtain reproductive care or health care or other kinds of health care. It's certainly something in every bill I've been dealing with in the legislature on transportation. Folks are at least thinking about the privacy, location privacy issues involved. So I'm just concerned that doesn't seem to be mentioned at all here. Thanks.
Thank you, Member Tien. And then we have Member Finnegan.
Hey, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I actually really appreciate all three of the comments or questions that have come up. And if I remember them all, I'll take them in order really quick because I wanted to weigh in on each of them. I think the comments and questions about the broader transportation landscape in California and its funding needs and its current funding sources, which do come from a variety of places. Clearly, that report was much broader than what this group has been focusing on. However, what this group has been focusing on can be a piece of the solution to that issue, right? And I think this underscores an issue that I've brought up before, which is as we communicate with the public about this issue, I think there needs to be an understanding that the purpose of a possible road charge as a replacement to the gas tax is to address the erosion of revenue caused by increasing fuel efficiency and the increasing use of non-gas vehicles. And that's the primary focus, which does not get to the really big picture issue of funding needs, but it does get to part of it. And I would urge the committee in this effort to keep focused on our role, which is to replace that gas tax in the future with something that's more viable longer term. And although it's part of solving the bigger problem, I don't know that this effort should be the entire solution. So, I'll set that aside for now. I just think we have to keep that in mind, especially from a public awareness, public perception standpoint. Getting to Asha's viewpoint as well, and I'm not that familiar with prior reports on this, but I think and whether it's at the federal level or state level, I think understanding the different impacts that different classes and types of vehicles have on the road network, and how much they're paying now and how maybe that gets addressed in the future is worthwhile information. And so if there is pre-existing research or studies on that, I think that'd be great to share that with the committee. And if there is anything afoot for the future, that would be good as well. And I'm always happy to back Lee in his privacy comments, because I think that's also a fundamental issue to all of what we're dealing with. And also it gets back again to public receptivity to this, public concerns and perceptions, which need to make sure that we do this as simply as possible, but as well as possible addressing privacy, security, and other issues. So I just wanted to sort of lay that out. I think we've all talked about these issues for a long time, but I do appreciate the comments that came up.
Thank you, Member Finnegan. Also online, I believe we have Misty, right, Craig?
Yes. Hello, everybody. I just wanted to also state that I agree with the comments previously, especially regarding the privacy and also the fact that I think that people are going to have a problem with any sort of gas tax or gas tax alternative being used towards anything other than roads. Especially in the rural areas, because we do not have a lot of the transit options or, you know, the other railway options that are available in the urban inner city areas.
Thank you. Any other members online? Oh, yeah. Member Bartlett, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So relative to the privacy issue, and I know that we're utilizing the Transportation Corridor Agencies, or TCA, on the toll roads as perhaps one of our commercial account managers. They have been collecting information relative to all the ridership on the toll roads and with the revenue and the billing collections, et cetera. And relative to privacy issues, I think we can utilize what OCTA for the 91 Express Lanes and I-405 project have done, along with TCA on the 4 toll roads that they manage in Southern California. They scrub the data on a regular basis, and we've really had no major issues relative to any type of breaches of data from the millions of accounts that have gone through those systems over time. So it's really kind of a proven technology and formula and format that seems to work relative to collecting the information they need to bill out to the users of the toll roads and express lanes, but also maintaining that high level of privacy, whether it be through the express lanes at OCTA or the toll roads at TCA. So relative to having someone like a TCA as a commercial account manager, I think makes a lot of sense, and we can use that as a template going from the local level down here in Southern California and expanding that out to statewide. There's no sense reinventing the wheel when they've got a proven formula that really seems to work well. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I bring it back in the room, is there anyone else online? And I believe we also maybe have a comment that was submitted, Douglas.
Yeah, we have a written comment from the public if you're ready for that.
Oh, we'll go to that in public in a minute then.
Thank you.
Thank you, Douglas. Member Madaffer, I think.
Yeah, thank you very much. You know, I was playing with the numbers on slide 5 on the presentation. And when you see the shortfall of 31 billion, you know, from declining fuel consumption, you know, that's about 13-14% of the state and federal funding source. It's getting to be a real number. And I, again, would just wonder, when the CTC makes its report to the legislature, how this information could get shared. You know, clearly, I don't think road charge is ever going to be popular with anybody until it's really clear that this is not just an additive to the existing gasoline tax. You know, and unless that's in statute and unless that's codified, nobody's ever going to go along with this. So that's important. But I think it's pretty apparent when you look at this and you see a $31 billion shortfall due to declining fuel consumption, this is starting to look real. It didn't appear this way 5 years ago or 10 years ago, but this number will continue to grow. And all of the issues that we have been dealing with since, well, I guess since I was chair of this group and we started it, 10 years ago now. You know, it to me seems as though the reality is getting to be upon us. And if the governor's mandate of EV by 2035, which is, you know, what, 9 years from now, a little over 9 years from now, if that becomes reality, this number is going to go from 31 billion very quickly to a much bigger number, and it's definitely impact the STIP and everything else that we're trying to do to maintain the infrastructure in our state. So I would hope that the legislature at least sees this and recognizes that they can't raise taxes out of this. They can't raise the gas tax out of this. that we're going to have to look at a way to where there's a state constitutional protection to having a mileage fee in lieu of a gas charge, a gasoline tax charge, and it's something that they need to start being real serious about because the time is getting close to where we're going to start talking real money.
Thank you, Member Daffer. Anyone else in the room? Do we have any public comments? In the room?
Nothing in the room, Chair. We do have a comment online from Cheryl Miller. It's a two-part comment. I thought that the gas taxes were specifically for the roads. And also, this information should not be private. It should be made available to the public. If not, then why not?
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Douglas. Go ahead, Member Rickball.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to comment that I agree that an alternate fuel tax is needed based on the fact that the governor is mandating the zero emissions policy. However, due to the fact that most people in rural California are still going to be driving gasoline vehicles, I think that it needs to be mandated towards those who can afford and are able to purchase those zero emission vehicles and those who will be using them and already do use them. So I think we should be focusing on an alternative tax for those people who are already driving those vehicles or who will be driving those zero emission vehicles. To begin with, at least.
2 seconds. Thank you very much. Before I go back to Member Daffer, is there anyone else? Any committee members? Go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate that last comment. And I just want to add, every EV vehicle made today has onboard telematics capable of reporting the miles. And there's no excuse for us not doing it right now. And there's no excuse for them not paying right now. It's just a matter of, frankly, making it happen. And so far, I have seen no leadership in the state legislature to do such a thing. And it needs to happen. And I agree with the last comment. When we first took this thing around the state, it was the rural areas that we found, at first they were all opposed to this. What do you mean? But you come to find out the guy that's got the logging job or the gal that's got the ag job that's driving 60, 70, 100 miles to get to work in an old Ford F-150 at 8 miles to the gallon is probably paying close to 20 cents a mile compared to the 2.8 in the last pilot. So they're getting ripped off even worse than they realized. And it's actually those folks that are going to benefit the most from a road usage charge. But we need to start someplace. And the EVs should be paying now. The technology exists. The legislature should mandate that the auto manufacturers provide the telematic information, provided the privacy issues that Mr. Lee Tien has taught us about. I totally agree. For those people that want to take pictures of their odometer and send it in, that's fine by me too. But it's high time that we move past this farting around and start doing something. It's just ridiculous that nothing's happening on it. And, I get it. We're just a committee here that makes recommendations. And then the CTC makes recommendations to the legislature. And the report sits on a shelf and collects dust. But at some point, we're talking real money.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Jim. Yeah, go into it. There's no other comments from committee members. Seeing none, public comment.
Thank you, Chair. Public comment from Jen G. In responding to Member Finnegan's question regarding the contributions of different vehicle classes to motor fuel tax revenues, the Institute of Transportation Studies at UC Davis report to the Commission, completed in April of 2024, has the detailed breakdown. This report can be found in tab 7 of the May 31st, 2024 TAC meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment?
Not seeing any more requests for public comment, Chair.
Thank you. I want to thank the public and members for a robust conversation. That brings us to item number 9, which is Senate Bill 339 update road charge revenue collection pilot. This will be presented by Lauren from Caltrans, Lauren Brahota from Caltrans. Go ahead, Laura.
All right. Good afternoon, members, both here and online. Again, my name is Lauren Brahota. I am the Caltrans Road Charge Program Manager. I am going to start off with a brief update regarding our road charge collection pilot that was authorized by SB 339 in 2021. We have wrapped the live section of the pilot. Participants stopped reporting data at the end of January. Through February, they were paying their final bills, doing some final closeouts and surveys. So we're now starting to get those results back in and looking through them, digesting in relation to the requirements of the legislation in terms of the report back to the legislature. And then we'll begin drafting that report. I am happy to say that, you know, on this pilot, we did meet our recruitment goals. We had 802 participants. And I think largely due to the incentives that were provided in this project, that we had very high levels of completion. We only had 17 people request to close their accounts, which if you've looked at the data from previous pilots and pilots in other states, you typically have a large amount of attrition. So that was very exciting. We did over recruit in the body of participants, particularly for certain types of vehicles like EVs and also rural residents, because we wanted to make sure, given some of the questions the legislature had given us, that we had enough diversity of vehicles. So I think we were happy with that outcome. This means that only about 2/3 of the participants had gas-powered vehicles. That still sounds like a lot, but you know, in the demographics of California, it's actually much higher. But we had 10 hydrogen-powered vehicles, which is very exciting, and just a good range there. In any given month, we had 95% of participants actually paying their bill. Again, a very high level of participation, which just goes to show what you can achieve when you pay people $400. So we are pleased with how that's going. We believe we're on track with statutory deadlines for that, and we'll keep working away on that. But we really are grateful for all the folks who participated in this pilot and gave their opinions and gave their time and their miles to understanding this further. So we're looking forward to continuing to analyze everything and work that out. So brief report, but that's where we are.
Thank you, Lauren. Do any members have any questions?
Mr. Chair, my only comment was that I was a participant, even though I don't qualify for the $400. And I'd just like to say it was wonderful. It was perfect. It was easy. Got this bill at the end of the month, pressed a couple buttons, 30 seconds, I'm paid. And so it was great. So here, go.
Good. Any other committee members in the room? Yeah, and then we have member Rick Wall online. Go ahead.
Hi, I was wondering if there was a breakdown of the demographics of what types of users participated in that and where they were located. Were they rural or were they in the city?
Yes, we will have all that sort of demographic information in the report. We don't have it yet fully processed yet, but I do have some basic vehicle numbers. So we had 479 gasoline, 90 hybrid, 165 electric, 63 plug-in hybrid, 15 diesel, and 10 hydrogen. So those are kind of some early stats that we have, but most of them will be continuing to analyze, but they will all be in the final report.
And will that include where they were located? What type of area?
Yes. We usually include a map of where participants are. In fact, you'll see one similar coming up in my next presentation, so people get a sense. And this pilot, definitely we wanted to get statewide participation. So we were happy with how that was achieved.
Thank you. Member Bartlett?
Thank you. So I think to prompt the legislature into action and give them a reality check, they need to know that in 2023, there were 1.26 million registered EV vehicles in the state of California that are they're driving all over our roads and highways every day, and they're paying zero gas tax. So when you put, out those numbers, they can extrapolate from that. And that's why we have such a huge shortfall on the revenue side of things. So maybe, putting something out to them relative to the facts, and letting them know this is one of the reasons why, and that number is just going to keep going up and up. And that's why our revenue shortfall is going to be increasing as well. So they really do need that reality check to try to prompt them into action. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I just very,
Go ahead.
just very quick, and absolutely, it's why we're all here to think about how electric vehicles can pay their fair share. But there is a special registration fee annually that currently most electric vehicles in California do pay. We can debate whether it's actually the equivalent of what those vehicles would have paid, but EV drivers are contributing something. So let's just keep that in mind.
Great point. Gosh, any other members? Okay, seeing none, any public comment in the room? Public comment online?
Not seeing any requests for public comment.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. This brings us to item number 10, which will also be presented by Lauren. It's overview of the road charge public-private roads projects report. Go ahead, Lauren.
All right. Well, I am very excited to be presenting this to you today. This project, if we think about the body of work that California has done in terms of investigating what road use charges might look like in California, what are the various impacts of it. This is the third pilot out of 4. So if you think about our first pilot back in 2016, 2017, that was the big pilot, the big general feasibility test. Could this work? And that pilot, the general answer was, yes, this is feasible. But it also had some recommendations, right, in the final report of areas for further study. And so that's what our subsequent pilots have been looking at. And this one is looking at the recommendation of, hey, we had some tough times recruiting rural residents in this first pilot. We should do more work in this area. The state has done research, definitely like database research on the impact to rural drivers. That research is on our website at caroadcharge.com. And that's where we've learned over time that the impact to rural residents is somewhat counterintuitive. Everyone thinks that road charge is going to be bad for rural residents because we know they have to drive further. They don't have access to transit, those kind of things. However, what our research has shown, and this is proven true across many other states as well, is that on average, because rural drivers drive larger, less fuel-efficient vehicles because of the needs of their way of life, they're actually, on average, going to save money under a switch to a revenue-neutral road charge away from the gas tax. So that's the numerical finding, but it's not just enough to look at the numbers. You also need to have conversations with the communities and engage them. And that's really what this project was about. This was envisioned by former Secretary Kim. We started working on this even late 2019 in terms of getting together a grant proposal. This was funded with federal funds, so thank you, FHWA, and getting it all together. So that's kind of where it fits in the state's overarching research efforts. Next slide, please. So we had a couple of things we wanted to accomplish through this project. And the first one was absolutely the voices, the perspectives of these communities and engaging with them, bringing them to the table and saying, okay, here's what road charge is. Here's what it does. Let's learn a little about it. Now, what's your day like? How do we think these are going to fit together? Where are your concerns? Where are your priorities? And making sure that as the state is exploring this idea of road charge, that these communities are at the table. Secondly, we wanted to explore some specific technology. We don't necessarily do the same thing in every pilot. The first pilot, we tested a lot of different ways to report your mileage. This one, we only did one because we really wanted to look into a specific situation. And that was the situation you often see in rural areas where you have a public road and then right next to it, you have a private frontage road. And really, if you think about that, in one scenario, you should be charged tax because it's a public road, and the other, you should not because it's private property and no public funds go to its maintenance. So we wanted to see, okay, how precise can we rely on GPS technology in a tax situation to do that? And it does have implications for urban settings as well. If you think about a tolling scenario, do we have a tolled lane right next to a general purpose lane, right? So that there's that implication there as well. So we wanted to look into that and see how that played out. Third, we did have kind of a last minute opportunity to look at some tolling crossover. We view that the tolling agencies in California could potentially serve as commercial account managers for a statewide road use charge system. So we were having some conversation with the folks at TCA, the tolling corridor agency, and we kind of all jumped in together and said, hey, let's do this, see how this might work a little bit. And so we were able to basically, our consultant was able to give them the mileage numbers for their existing customers, and they were able to practice rolling it into their existing account and billing structure. So that was a great kind of last minute opportunity to start exploring that tolling crossover. Next slide, please. So the recruitment for this pilot was very different than the other pilots that we've had because these are the most difficult communities to recruit in the state. For that reason, we tried to bump up the incentives. We offered incentives of up to $250 for this particular pilot. It was not enough. We did not meet our full recruitment goals. And we took that lesson learned and we rolled that into SB 339. That's why you see $400 incentives for that one. But we really tried to go small and targeted in this recruitment instead of the usual general statewide broadcasts that we do. So we took an approach to go through as many agencies as we could on the rural front. So we connected with folks like the Rural County Representatives of California, State Association of Counties, League of Cities, the Farm Bureau, Cattlemen's Association, these kind of groups that have connections into the rural areas of the state, and worked with them to educate their membership and pursue further opportunities to talk about this and recruit folks for the pilot. I did a lot of traveling in 2023. I'll get to that more in a minute. But when it came to the tribal effort, this one was probably our biggest focused effort. We started with the Caltrans Native American Advisory Committee. These are a wonderful group of folks who meet quarterly with Caltrans to bring tribal issues to the table. Misty is on it. And connect with Caltrans about transportation needs in our projects and their projects and things like that. So we went to them first and just said, hey, we would love your advice on how we can connect with tribal members and recruit and educate about this and bring your voice to the table. They gave us some great advice. We did formal notification to all the tribes in California. We went to events. We worked with the National Indian Justice Center to spread word. We did ads in culturally focused publications. We even developed a Bring a Friend program for recruitment. We did everything we could think of and tried to think outside the box and really do what we could. At the end of the day, I think one of the most important conversations we had was with the Chairman's Association, with the Northern and Southern Tribal Chairmen's Associations. Those were good conversations. They continue to be good conversations. The chairman didn't really feel that this was an area that they wanted their tribes to spend too much time in at this time. Tribes have a lot of projects and everything that they are asked to give input in on California, which that is a great and critical thing, but many tribes just have very limited staff. And so they do have to prioritize where they spend their time, which is completely understandable. So we did not meet our recruitment goals, either for the participants, for the polling or focus groups that we wanted to do, but that's okay. We continue to have really good conversations, regular updates at the Native American Advisory Committee, and try to make sure that tribes are apprised. We actually did give this draft report to the tribes for a 45-day comment period before it was sent to final review to make sure that they felt their voice was appropriately captured. And Misty did give us some great comments back to you specifically on that. So that was the tribal effort. In terms of the TCA subpilot, they wanted to control communications with their existing customers, which is again completely understandable. So they basically sent an email to existing tolling customers to say, hey, you have this opportunity to participate. And that's how we got participants on that front. So very different recruitment process than our usual pilots. We didn't get all the way to where we wanted to go, but we did get, particularly on the rural side, some good response. And just you can see that here. Here's that map of where the participants are statewide in the different groups. You can see we go through this phase of people signing up on the website of saying, hey, I'm interested in the pilot. We invite them, and then some of them actually sign up. So you can kind of see how that went through in the different groups. We had, again, mostly gas-powered vehicles. That's just the nature more of rural communities, but those are some basic stats there. Some of the interesting findings that we were surprised with in terms of testing that GPS differentiation between public and private roads, we thought there would be a lot more mileage on private roads in the rural group than there actually turned out to be. As you can see here, if you add together the miles on private and tribal roads for the rural, it's only 1.5%. That surprised us a little bit. We thought it would be higher. So that was an interesting finding, and it kind of fed into some determinations about where the rural community landed in some of these implications of a road charge, which we found pretty interesting. But you can see tribal group, they had a much higher percentage of miles on tribal, which makes sense. So as we engaged in recruitment, we're also trying to do communications, bringing this issue to our rural counties and communities, to the tribes, to understand the problem that's in front of us and how we need to engage. And I do want to give a shout out to Stacy. She was very helpful in making connections for us in Humboldt County. And as a result, I think Humboldt County is one of the better represented counties in this study. But this map here that you see here, this was my 2023 of driving around our beautiful state. It was a great privilege to really be in these communities and talk directly. Spent a lot of time at Board of Supervisor meetings talking about the problem that we're looking at in terms of gas tax funding, which is their funding as much as state funding, and how we might work together to solve it. So that was, I put a lot of miles on my car, but it was great, So we did that person-to-person engagement. We went to a lot of organizational meetings. We did focus groups with rural communities. We did some polls. We did one-on-one interviews with tribal members. We interviewed some of the Native American Advisory Committee members and things like that to try to get a sense of where these communities are and where their priorities are. So the findings from all that effort, when we think about the rural communities, these are communities that have a high level of mistrust in government. In terms of transportation funding, that means that they really think it's not necessarily a lack of funding, but funding is being misused or misspent or is inefficiently, whatever. So they don't necessarily, trust in that sense. But they do agree that it is important to replace the gas tax with something sustainable, and that EVs and hybrids should pay their fair share. That fair share argument definitely resonates. And rural leaders especially, they understand there's a problem. They don't necessarily go right straight to loving the idea of road charge, but they understand there's a problem and they want to be at the table to help solve that problem because it is their problem as much as other parts of the state. There were a couple of key takeaways that we felt in engaging this community. Part of the objective that we wanted to do with this community in testing that high-tech GPS location sharing reporting option, these areas of the state tend to be most focused on privacy. They also tend to be the areas of the state who would like to see lower taxes. you are more likely to get a lower road charge if you share information, right? So the question is, if you have to choose between sharing your information and getting lower taxes, which way will you go? Where's your priority, right? And this goes back to that surprise we had in the results, the low number of mileage on the private roads that we found. And the feedback that came out of that was basically, I'm not saving enough to give the government my data. So what that feeds into is still in those areas having the preference for the low tech reporting options rather than saving on taxes a little bit. And again, there's diversity still, amongst rural communities as much as any other part of the state, but that's kind of the general tack that we heard. Another point was they said, okay, if you have to do road charge, can we just do it on EVs? Kind of same point that Misty kind of raised earlier. The interesting thing about this is if we think about the research we've done on how rural drivers will save under a switch to a road charge, that's for all vehicles, because the vehicles that will save are the low fuel efficient gas powered. So by saying they want to do EV only, what they're saying is it's okay that we're still paying more as long as EVs come up. So we won't have as much of the equity gains if you do an EV only program versus all vehicles, but they seem to still prefer that. So that's an interesting takeaway about the priorities of that community. Finally, just that experience with road charge still translates to support. This is an area of the state where, again, that mistrust in government very firmly exists. Whether that's, I'm not going to comment whether that's right or wrong, it's there. And so this new idea of road charge, one, it's just a new idea. We all hate new ideas, so that's against it, first off. And then there's the idea of reporting the miles. So they start out against it. But those who were in the pilot, living with it still, even in this community, still translates to support. 75% of the participants said, yeah, actually this works. So we see this in this community. We've seen it over subsequent pilots in our state and other states. And I think the takeaway for me over these years of studying this is, yeah, it's an upfront push of a change to this concept because it's new and unfamiliar. But once people live with it, it's fine, even in rural communities. So that's I think, a good takeaway for the state of, yes, it's going to be a difficult conversation, but once people live with it, it may not be as bad as we think. Next slide, please. Getting into tribal preferences. So again, we've worked with for a number of years now with the tribes, really wanting to make sure that they know what the issues are so they can be well educated to advocate for themselves and make sure that they know how to make their feelings known. And they are pretty consistently opposed to the idea of a road use charge for reasons that are common to other groups, just in terms of the privacy and all those things and the fairness and everything. But there are some specific issues that only the tribes have. And the first, of course, is sovereignty. They are sovereign nations. They are concerned about the effect of the state of California charging their community members a road charge. So that issue is there, and they have, it is a key issue for them. The second that we had not realized before engaging with the tribes was the impact to tribally owned gas stations. There are a number of tribes that own gas stations, not all tribes, but some. And these are key revenue drivers for their communities, not just transportation funding, but all of their government services. Because again, they are sovereign nations, they do not collect the California state gas tax, so they have about a good 60 cents per gallon advantage in terms of the sale of gasoline. So they really, for that reason, they also prefer an EV only road charge if the state goes that way, because then with an EV only road charge, you keep the gas tax in place, right? So they'd like to see the gas tax remain. It is critical to those tribes that do have those gas stations. Another thing is really just understanding, taking the time to understand how many tribes have funding issues, whether just in transportation or just generally, but especially in transportation. And a lot of that is dealt with at the federal level. So this is a very important issue for the federal pilot. And I know we have 2 TAC members who have been appointed to the Federal Advisory Board, which is great. So I just want to encourage you guys to make sure that this is something that is considered at the federal level, and how tribes receive transportation funding and how they might be involved in a federal road charge. There is a tribal member on the Federal Advisory Board. He's a great guy, head of transportation for the Cherokee Nation in Oklahoma. But the relationship between the state of Oklahoma and those tribes is very different from the one in California and the tribes here. So that it really makes a difference in their perspective. So it's going to be important, and I hope to keep supporting California tribes in engaging with the federal pilot to make sure their voice is heard at that level as well, because it will be an important issue at the federal level. Next slide, please. All right, technology learnings. So the GPS exploration that we did in this pilot was pretty successful. And we felt that it was pretty good in terms of relying on for a tax system. Are there edge use cases? Yes, we had one person report a question of saying, hey, I got charged for driving on a private road. And when we looked into it, what actually had happened was it was a public road. It's just one of the neighbors had put up a sign that said this is a private road because he didn't want people driving there. So those things happen. But in general, we found it was pretty reliable. A big piece of that, though, was because we were using Caltrans base maps. The accuracy of the maps is a key thing here. We've done a lot of comparison work with the state of Hawaii. They're also exploring this issue, and Hawaii's maps are not in as good of a state as California's are. So that aspect of the underlying maps is important. It wasn't a cost to us because Caltrans already had those. Other states might need to add that in as a cost to the system. And you need to be able to consistently update those maps accurately to make sure that the system remains good. The report does dive into some detail on some administrative cost aspects. I know that this has been an ongoing point of interest for many folks. We did use plug-in devices specifically that were enabled in GPS. Theoretically, you can also do GPS through in-vehicle telematics, but it's not yet regularly there. The car companies are not necessarily fully doing that. And a lot of that has to do with the cost of the data processing. We tested in this pilot different, I'm forgetting the technical terms, I think of them as ping rates, like how often the GPS is talking to the advice. We started out at 5 seconds, and then we did a couple months at 1 second. Different data costs. The more often you're talking to that device, the more expensive it gets, not just to move the data, but then you have to store the data and you have to process the data. This data aspect is a more expensive piece of it. The plug-in device, I think, have definitely an initial cost. Keep in mind that the plug-in devices that we use in pilots are really not designed for this. They're emission testing devices. We've kind of piggybacked on their usage. So we don't really have, as of yet, because we don't have any full statewide road use charge program yet, we don't have necessarily devices or anything like that that have been designed for road use charge. Also, in a pilot scenario, you don't get the economy of scale. So there's some limits to the pilot costs that we put in there, building that out. But I think one of the key things that we really focused on in learning about these administrative impacts is the data cost, especially considering for a state like California, how few of our miles were out of state, were out on a private road. And that's what you really need those location sharing things for in a statewide road use charge. So that's why we have this question here. It is a question for policymakers. Yes, we can rely on this kind of location sharing to differentiate, but is the cost worth it? Particularly because, rural drivers who might be the most inclined to benefit in terms of tax saving didn't particularly seem interested. So those are some of the policy questions of, okay, yes, feasibility is there. Is the cost worth it? Those are some questions to consider. However, I think a key point here is to realize that this could play out differently in different states. California, we don't get much revenue from out-of-state drivers. I mean, it's always a question on people's mind, but revenue-wise, it's not that big of a deal. But New England, that's a deal. A state like Florida, who has snowbirds, that's the deal. So as we look forward to interoperability among states, it is a question that will have to be carefully balanced. All right, on to tolling agency findings. So we had a great cooperation with TCA. We really appreciate the team over there just coming to, this was actually not part of the contract that we had, but the folks at WSP and TCA, we just all came together and like, let's make it work. So we really appreciate their attitude and testing this out so the state of California could understand things more. It worked really well. Again, technically WSP took in the data from the devices and sent it over to TCA to put into their account processing. It's kind of a first level test, and actually in SB 339, we went deeper with the tolling agency, so we're diving deeper into that. But it was a great experience with TCA. They felt that it was definitely a win-win, and the folks at TCA definitely see how converging in the future is a potential great opportunity. So with that, the report just went live yesterday. It's all there on our website. If anyone wants to read it, we have extensive attachments that go into the technical detail. If you're interested in particular areas, we also have some specific letters directly from the tribes laying out their perspective, so you can read verbatim their perspective. As always, all of our reports are on our website for public review and information. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Lauren. Great presentation. Do we have any committee members, any comments or questions for Lauren in the room? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I have only begun to scour the 65 pages of this report, so look forward to reading it more, and it looks like it was a great effort. So thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, Jim. Any other members? We have member Rick Wall online. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Lauren, for that overview. I would just encourage everybody to read those letters from the tribes that were submitted. There was the California Tribal Chairpersons Association actually submitted a letter. So that's important to read along with other tribal letters that have been submitted and other commission letters from tribes that have been submitted. I just strongly encourage you to read those. Another point I wanted to make was that I think that privacy is a very big part of the opposition from tribes, partially due to the fact that they would potentially be tracked to culturally sensitive areas, which I don't think a lot of people are even aware of, but that is one of a big reason. I know that I've, at least from my conversations with other tribes and tribal members, that's a large part of why they oppose this tracking system. So I don't know if there are other ways to impose this without a tracking system, but if there is, I think that would be very important to look into.
Great point. Member Bartlett.
Thank you. So this is a very informative report. So relative to the issues of private roads versus public roads, is it our intent to perhaps look at basically geomapping the entire state to figure out what areas need to be private and not charged? Does that include large residential communities, for instance? We have a community down here, Coto de Casa, that's about 5,000 homes. It's big, and it's all privately maintained within their boundaries, the guard gates, et cetera. Would they not get charged then for driving around their own community? And then TCA, when the 4 toll roads were negotiated with the state of California to be built out by TCA through a private funding mechanism, Caltrans had agreed to maintain the 4 toll roads. In contrast to that, we have the I-405 express lane project, which are express lanes from the 73 toll roads to the I-605. It's about 16 miles, but a portion of the toll fee that people that are users of those express lanes, a portion of that toll fee actually goes for maintenance of the actual express lanes. So then would we be giving those riders on those express lanes a potential credit so they're not dual taxed? So I don't know if we've looked at those kinds of things down at that granular level yet, but I just wanted to find out what the thoughts were with the other committee members.
Lauren, you have a
Yeah,
comment?
so in terms of the private roads, so, we're using shape files, the GPS shape files that are, some we got, the tribal ones we got from Bureau of Indian Affairs, many are Caltrans based, but yeah, you do have a private road, any sort of private road, whether it's an HOA, whether it's parking lot, those kind of things are defined differently, and the system can handle that. But that's, again, why it's important to have your maps be accurate and consistently updated to capture those nuances. I will say, in terms of tolling versus gas tax, I mean, as far as I'm aware, all of our tolling agencies in California have responsibilities towards the maintenance of the system in addition to the gas tax. So there, folks who use tolling, I know there's slightly different situations with each tolling agency, but that consistently some of those funds are going to maintenance as much as gas tax is. So that situation kind of already exists.
Okay, yeah, it's very different between TCA versus and the toll roads, because Caltrans maintains all of those toll roads. And then like the I-405 project, that was negotiated, and Caltrans required that a portion of the toll be that a person pays when they're traveling on the express lanes. A portion of that toll then goes for maintenance of the express lane. So it's different between the express lanes with OCTA and the toll roads with TCA. And so we just have to take those kinds of things into account, so that, for instance, if people are traveling on the express lanes on the I-405 and they're paying a toll of $10 and say, $1.50 goes to maintenance of the express lane to Caltrans out of that $10, that they're not also taxed with a vehicle miles traveled, road usage charge tax on top of it, because that would be a dual tax.
Right. I think my point is that Caltrans has maintenance agreements with all tolling agencies, that all the tolling agencies give parts of their funding to the maintenance of the facility done by Caltrans. So, and you definitely can. You have the ability with GPS technology to, look at a facility-specific fee. That does require that more high-tech reporting. So that, again, gets into the privacy trade-offs and things like that. So definitely the feasibility is there. It's, again, one of those many policy trade-offs.
Right. And I know where it gets expensive is not only with the setting up the entire system and looking at private versus public, but when it comes to the administrative fee overall for maintaining everything, 1% when you pay at the pump admin fee versus whatever it's going to be through the road usage charge. So we just have to try to keep our fee down as much as possible. And I know it's going to be really challenging with all of the parameters that we have to work within.
Yeah, and again, I think that's one of the questions that this report raises, is one aspect of the administrative cost potentially is the GPS data costs. And so if the state is setting a priority on keeping admin costs down, they may decide they not want to do that. For example, the state of Utah, who does have a voluntary program, has recently backed away from doing any sort of and they've cut their admin costs by 40%. So it is a trade-off. Again, trade-offs everywhere you look, so
Yeah.
we're just trying to, share those kind of questions and research so that all y'all and, the legislature can have that information to think about your priorities and trade-offs.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from members? Yeah, go ahead. Member O'Connor.
Right. I was gonna say, I was looking and there are 13 appendices and I have to say, some of them, I haven't looked at them yet, they're just there, but look really fascinating, especially looking forward to looking at the polling results and the focus groups and the surveys of participants. But one question here.
Excuse me, this is the ASL interpreter. We're not able to hear you.
Pardon me?
They can't hear you.
We are
Okay.
not able to hear
Okay.
you.
So I was talking about the 13 appendices and some of the ones that look especially interesting. But one of the things you mentioned in the slides when you were doing the presentation was to bring a friend. How did that work out?
Yeah, we were trying to get really creative to increase the participation of tribes in this pilot. We only had, I think it was 15. So we offered, for those tribal members that did sign up, we offered them, okay, if you bring a friend, we'll give you an extra incentive. So it was, okay, we got someone who thought, hey, this could be interesting. Maybe on their recommendation, they could invite more people. I don't think anyone took us up on it though. But those, just to highlight that we sincerely tried to do everything we could to bring as many tribal members into this. But everyone has their priorities, so it's fine.
Very good. Online, we have, sorry, can't see it. Can't see
Hi,
it.
it's Terry Benzel, University of Southern California. I really want to respond to what Misty said about privacy. I mean, Lee has already spoken up about privacy in general and using, the different agencies to be able to do that, and OCTA and TCA. But this is a whole different point, and it's just really important. Even if in the end everybody says, well, dismiss it, we won't do tribal land because it's going to be difficult or not enough or whatever. But I think we all need to think about it. We all deserve not to be tracked. And particularly in rural areas, the tribal lands and the rural areas, it's so easy to determine what store you've gone to, what restaurant you've gone to, which gas station you're going to. In a highly dense area like Los Angeles, where I live, you probably can't tell which of the 4 gas stations I have on my corner I went to, right? But there's just so much privacy. And then the culturally sensitive areas, how and when and where and why, members of our tribal community are participating in culturally sensitive, projects and processions shouldn't be tracked. And so I'm really nervous about this whole thing. Of course, we'd like to be fair and make sure we hit the rural areas and the tribal areas. And I so appreciate all the work you all did trying to get the tribal areas to participate, but we need to step back and think about this privacy issue.
Go ahead, Laura.
I would just note that you're right, privacy is critical. And, we have data security standards, we have privacy standards, but I think the real bedrock of protecting privacy in a potential state road charge program is the choice of the individual. We want to have this range of reporting options so that you choose how much data that you want to share, that you have the ultimate control. That's the best defense for people who are concerned. Some people don't care. They want to process all the data. They want to know every trip they took, and everything like that. But ultimately, I don't need to know your location to report your state road charge. I just need the number of miles, and whether that's someone reading your odometer once a year or your odometer pictures or just whatever, it's fine. I don't need it. It does not need to be required. So having that choice, I think, is really the critical thing as the legislature considers this, in individuals having control over their own data and protecting their own privacy and making that choice for themselves in that trade-off between privacy and efficiency, not having the government make it for them.
I very much appreciate that. And thank you. But from what I'm hearing right now, some of the challenges in the rural tribal area narrow those, because you really need that GPS data to determine on public-private roads. And again, all those, whatever that 1.26 million EVs in California, most drivers of those cars are happy to share their data, right? But we would really need to work with our rural and tribal communities to make sure they have options and how to address the discrepancies in private public roads without detailed GPS data.
Yeah, I think, when you choose those more low-tech options, you don't get into the differentiation. That's part of the choice. But there can be another way to handle it. So in the most recent pilot, the state of Washington floated this idea with their participants of, okay, what if we give you a standard deduction for out-of-state miles and private roads of 200 miles? And everyone was pretty much happy with, like, it was a completely random number, but just the idea of like, yeah, I get a standard deduction, great, then I'm happy. So, you know, there are potentially different approaches that we could take to this that, again, do not require that data transaction.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Member Vintel. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. I feel like this report really adds quite a bit to our understanding. Of course, every pilot does, but it was really interesting to see the specific perspectives of tribal and rural communities, and also that the GPS actually can distinguish these facilities. I was curious if it's possible to make, to share the more detailed findings from some of the public opinion research. Like, I don't know if you have a separate report that has the survey questionnaires and top line results and anything more from the qualitative work.
You can find more detailed reporting on the communication stuff in one of the attachments. So there's, there's like 13 attachments. So there's some attachments that will definitely appeal to folks like Lee and Terry. And there's some that'll,
Okay, so because the one that got sent out to us just ends on page 65. So we need to go somewhere else.
It's on the website. If you go to the website, there's the main report and then
Gotcha.
you'll see attachment.
Okay, thank you so much.
Very good. We also have online Member Lee. Tien.
Hi, sorry, I just wanted to really lift up the idea that Lauren sort of came up with, or that folks were talking about with the idea of it like a standard deduction. Because one of the trade-offs in this world is between granularity and is really about precision. I mean, a lot of times we ask for more precision than we actually need in order to deliver something, and often that can mean more data about what people are doing in their everyday driving or motion. And if we don't actually need it, which I think is one of the big lessons here, in order to administer a road charge program, then we should not. And the idea of something like an approximate standard deduction that is okay with a lot of people, just like a monthly sort of blanket monthly fee, if it achieves the goal of bridging the revenue gap, then without sacrificing people's privacy, that's, from my standpoint, that's a very user-friendly option. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have Lauren, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just want to note, you know, the privacy issues are so important. I do appreciate the input that Lee and Terry specifically have had over the years that have helped me so much. And it just continues to get more important because particularly as we move into the AI space, I think the opportunities to reverse engineer and to, you know, find not only the restaurant they went to in a rural area, but in the heart of LA, you know. So we'll continue to be looking at these issues. But again, I think that's why it's so important in the structure of the program to have that base choice for the individual.
Good. Sure. Member O'Connor? And then
I just wanted to say, you know, road charge is a fairly dry and dense kind of topic in general, but I want to say, I've just had the report for like a day or so. The graphics, the charts, the images really enliven this report. And I just want to compliment.
Excuse me, this is ASL interpreter. Could you speak into the microphone?
Oh, I keep doing that. Okay, I will repeat this because it's worth repeating.
Thank you.
The graphics, the charts, the images in this report really enliven it and make it more accessible to readers. So I just want to compliment you on a great job.
good. We also have Member Rick Walt.
Yes,
online.
thank you. I wanted to comment also that it is hard for most of us, I think, to hear you all in the room, or at least the front panel of people. It suddenly got quiet. We could hear you fine for a while and now we can't. Anyway, I just wanted to say that I also agree that a standard deduction may be a good option, or a monthly fee. That would lessen the chances of being tracked, right? no tracking. And also, if there was a monthly fee, I think it would be in the best interest of the general public to have a higher fee for those using the EV vehicles. Because they would not be also buying and purchasing fuel.
Thank you. Other comments from committee members online or live? Seeing none, any public comment or questions? Live? In the room, I should say?
Can other people hear the chairperson? I can't.
Sorry.
No.
Are there any public comments, comments from the public in the room? Seeing none, are there any online?
No comments online, Chair.
Very good. Thanks again, Lauren, and for everyone for their participation. Let me just ask the team, does anyone need a bio break? We've been rolling. So far, so good? Okay. That brings us to item number 11, which is a review of action items. I believe we only have one. I'll toss it to you, Francis, right? I think we just have the minutes.
Yes, so we will be working on, I think we approved the minutes earlier
Yeah, we
today.
approved
Yeah,
them.
so
Yeah,
that
just
was
to
it.
re- That was it, right?
Yeah, there are no follow-up.
We had one.
Was it?
So
What did I
just to clarify, there was one follow-up,
Right,
committee member Madaffer asked us to share that article.
right.
Yeah,
Sorry.
the San Diego Tribune article that came out on road charge today. Okay.
Good. Thank you very much. Okay. No vote needed on that, though, right?
No.
I think so. All right. Item,
No request for public comment on that.
no request for public comment. Okay, thank you, Douglas. That brings us to item number 10, public comment. Wide open. Do
Not
you need-
seeing any requests for public comment.
Yep, we can go back to you, Francis. Do you have something?
Oh, no, I misnumbered it. Sorry.
Oh, oh,
The very back.
oh, there we go. Yeah, well, I'm just trying to confuse everyone. Sorry. We are actually on item number 12, I think. Yeah, all right. Very good.
We
That's
did just
your
get a
10
request for public comment.
Say it again.
We did just get a request for public comment.
Very good.
It's a call-in user.
Go ahead, caller.
You should be free to unmute and talk.
Good afternoon. I'm a resident of Los Angeles, and my goodness, the different issues that come up for such a simple thing to charge for mileage. I hope that what is kept in the forefront are the unintended consequences. Every project that has ever happened has always had unintended consequences. Basic charge so that members keep their privacy. What if I drive 1 mile every week compared to my neighbor who drives 1 mile every minute or 2 hours to work? But we're going to be charged both the same? What about those persons with disability that cannot rely on public transportation, that have to have their own motor vehicle for transportation purposes? They have to. They rely on their own personal vehicle, and they're going to be, for lack of a better word, punished for that. I hope that you keep these and other unintended consequences at the forefront when planning. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Not seeing any other requests to make public comment.
Go ahead. Executive Director Taylor.
One thing I wanted to just kind of bring us kind of back to in this larger discussion is that as the conversation about the replacement to the gas tax continues to move forward, and as the legislature starts to take up conversations about what that mechanism will be, and I didn't want to leave the last commenter thinking that those things won't be part of the conversation. There will be conversations about how do we make it equitable? Who should it be equitable for? At what rate should whatever the mechanism is going to be set at? What tools and what strategies are we trying to achieve? What goals are we trying to achieve? All of those things will be part of the conversation. And I didn't want to leave today without saying that out loud so that everybody knows that all of those things are on the table as the answer is being contemplated.
Thank you, Executive Director Taylor. Seeing no other public comment, I'll put it one more time to the members for any last thoughts or comments. Okay, I see, Committee Member Rick Wall, go ahead.
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that I think that proposing, I would like to propose that there is further outreach to tribes and rural communities. I know that we didn't get a lot of feedback from them. I think it's important that we do. And I mean, when I'm talking about rural, I mean rural as in those who are 2.5 hours from the nearest hospital one way. That type of rural.
Thank you very much. I don't believe that'll be,
And
you want to speak to
yeah,
that, Lauren? But
I
please
just
feel
want
free
to
do
know,
that.
thank you, Misty. You know, our outreach to the tribe definitely hasn't stopped just
Good.
because it's, you know, we had this point in time capture in this report, but we continue. I'm, you know, as Misty knows, I'm always at the NAC providing updates. Any opportunity I have to provide them with information between the NAC meetings as well, making sure that their voice is raised at the federal level. You know, this is not stopped and it's not going to stop. So we're definitely committed to continuing to make sure the tribes know where things are, what's happening, so, and that they are fully equipped to make their priorities known.
Thank you, Lauren. Yeah, I think it's important not to just present to them, but to also hear what they have to say. And so maybe there is another way to gather more information or provide more information to them I know that the NAC committee is, you know, meets quarterly, but not all tribes attend that committee. And so there may be some that are just not even very fully aware of this project that should be included. And I'm happy to assist in any way that I can.
Good. Thank you. Misty, appreciate it. Any other committee members? Nothing online? And again, I was talking to Executive Director, I need to get some better glasses, I think. Anyway, apologies for some of my clumsiness there. Well, that brings us to the conclusion of our meeting. I want to thank everyone for attending, particularly the public. But everyone had really great comments and well thought out suggestions. Our next meeting will be Friday, July 25th, 2025. We look forward to your participation at our next meeting. With that, we will stand adjourned and have a great day. Oh, I should say thank you to our hosts as well. Fantastic. We appreciate it. And with that, we'll stand adjourned. I had a gavel this time.